Hello everyone, welcome to our final theory. Hopefully I can get this done in one screencast, okay? So we've talked about social penetration theory. We've talked about uncertainty reduction theory. We've talked about relational dialectics. Now we come to our final theory, social exchange theory. So where social penetration theory dealt with self-disclosure and viewing the self as an onion that we get to know by disclosing parts of that. Uncertainty reduction dealt with our need to reduce uncertainty in active, interactive, and passive ways with all the axioms that I didn't mention, but they are in the article that I posted if you wanted to look at those. We did relational dialectics, which really gets into the meat and potatoes of interpersonal relationships where we have these contradictory needs and we work on negotiating those. I have contradictory needs and you have contradictory needs, and then we come into a relationship and chances are the way that I deal with my contradiction and the way you deal with yours is not the same. So we talked about all of that and we talked about how those get managed. Now we're at social exchange theory. Now social exchange theory is sometimes called exchange theory. It's been around for a while. Okay, we got Tebow and Kelly from back in the late 50s working on exchange theory. And so if you can recall, in beginning to talk about relational dialectics, we said that it's not formulaic. Well, they were responding to this type of theory. This type of theory was actually one of the prominent theories in communication for a long time. It still is, because it tells us some good things, okay? All of these theories together sort of hit different pieces of what it means to be a human being who communicates in interpersonal relationships, okay? So we've got social exchange theory. Yes, this is the Fonz, folks. It's also the guy who played the really horrible lawyer in Arrested Development. If you've watched that, Henry Winkler says assumptions are the termites of relationships, and he's correct. Assumptions can really kill us. And now this theory is not about assumptions, but I think you'll see sort of maybe how this fits. Okay, so let's dive into social exchange theory. Social exchange theory tells us things like this. So if you can think for just a minute to yourselves, what factors actually influence your decision to enter a romantic relationship? There are factors that influence this. I don't know how aware of them you are. I know some people who sort of take whatever happens. I know some people who have a list that they must check off before they enter into a romantic relationship. Same thing for stay. There are factors that influence you staying, whether or not you're happy. And we're going to talk about that. And we also have what factors influence you leaving. Okay? And so if you think about this in your thoughts, and I'm saying be specific in your thoughts because I'm not sure how specific you've been. Some of you have probably been very specific and you know each job's happening, I'm out the door, or whoa, this thing happened when I first met you and I was in the door, or whatever it is. We have these factors that influence our decisions to do these things. So let's take a look at this. So the thesis of social exchange theory is this. It's simple. We seek to develop relationships that give us the greatest profit. This might sound self-serving, but it's true. Very few people that I've come across, in fact, I've never come across anybody, even people who have dysfunctional, destructive tendencies, they still see it as a profit, right? Because they're in it for the ride or whatever. Most of the people I know never look at the prospect of a new relationship, friendship, romantic relationship, job relationship, and go, this is going to cause emotional and psychological carnage in my life. This is totally going to upend everything that's going right for me right now. Let's do this. Like, nobody that I know does that. We seek to develop relationships that give us the greatest profit. And for us to actually enter that relationship, we are going to have to assess what the possibilities are there for us. Okay? So here's the actual theory speak, and it's going to lead us into the rest of the stuff that we've got here. So every individual voluntarily enters and stays in any relationship only as long as it is adequately satisfactory in terms of their rewards and costs. What social exchange theory is going to tell us is that we essentially do a consistent, like all the time, we do cost-benefit analysis. We look at the rewards, we look at the costs, and if it's satisfactory, then we will enter and stay in. If something goes wrong with satisfaction, we are going to leave. Maybe, okay? Similarly, we terminate relationships when they are not satisfactory in terms of costs and rewards. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about people who stay when they're unhappy, okay? That happens all the time. So I mentioned this on the previous slide or two here about how relational dialectics said relationships are non-formulaic. Yes? Well, social exchange theory says we have a formula. Okay? Here's what social exchange theory says. Social exchange theory says that we seek to develop relationships that give us the greatest profit. And so we are going to take the rewards we get. Now, sometimes if you're looking to enter into a relationship, you're looking at prospective rewards. You're looking at prospective costs. You weigh it out. You decide, well, whether it's going to be adequately satisfactory or profitable or not, and then you choose to enter. While you're in the relationship, you take the rewards you're getting versus the cost. You're going to be weighing that to see if it's worth staying in. And then if the costs start to sort of outweigh the rewards and the costs start to get real heavy, then whatever rewards you had there just flat don't matter, and you're going to possibly leave. Okay? Now, it's more complicated than that, but this is the initial view of social exchange theory. It sounds self-serving, it sounds selfish, but it's just true. Okay? We seek relationships that give us profit. So, we use this formula to calculate whether a relationship is a good deal or not worth the effort. Okay? And both parties in a relationship do this. So while you're sitting there staring at that person from across the table going, I wonder if they're worth it, they're looking at you and doing the exact same thing. They want a relationship that gives them the greatest profit. It is not selfish to want a relationship that gives you profit. And I've said that every semester I've taught interpersonal now, which is a long time. And I always have at least one student who's like, huh, really? We have IPTs and we have history and we have all these things that happen in our lives that can lead us into the choices we make in our relationships. And so for some people, it is sort of a revelation that you should have a relationship that gives you profit. You really should. And I'm not saying that if you're in one that's not, that it has to end immediately or anything like that, but I am saying that you deserve profit in your relationships, okay? You really, really do. I got all serious there for a minute. That was good. So let's talk about rewards. So you're going to take your rewards. This is very simple. A pleasure, satisfaction, gratification, any outcome you want is a reward. It can be tangible or intangible, okay? So anything you want, anything that you see as good. Now, your past history might lead you to think something is a reward that's actually not, right? Like, for example, I've got a friend who, okay, so like I reward myself for things with food that's not good for me. So like if I've achieved something, it gives me an excuse to eat something that is really bad for me, like a greasy hamburger or a Snickers bar or whatever. And I've got a friend who's like, Brandon, that's not a reward. Damaging yourself is not a reward. And I'm like, you haven't had a Snickers in how long? Because they are glorious. Anyway, we can do this with our relationships too, okay? But for the most part, we know what a good reward is. For the most part, we've got the pleasure, the satisfaction, the gratification. We've got that part down, okay? Some possible types: love, status, services, goods, information, money. I mean, these are just some of it, right? Some of it is the status of being in a relationship. Someone who's been like, I've been out of a relationship for a while, is just like, yes, I'm in one. That's what I wanted. Other people are like, I've got to see other things here, okay? So that's rewards. Just anything you want that's positive to you. Costs, the opposite of a reward. This part's really easy, okay? So the pain, distress, anxiety, mental effort, or, and this is also interesting, the loss or denial of a reward. So there was a reward and then it kind of fell off with time, or it used to be given, and now it's being just flat out withheld. It's being denied. That's cost. It's an undesirable outcome, folks, and it's open to subjective judgment. All of this is. What is a reward or cost might not be that way in a different relationship or in different people. Okay, so and this is another thing that I find is really interesting. When you talk to people who have been in friendships and romantic relationships for a while, some of them really know what a cost and a reward is to their partner. Others don't. Others are not fully aware that their addiction to golf, or whatever it is actually a cost to their partner. And their partner sees it as a loss or denial of a reward. Something like that. Whatever I just came up with, I don't know why I came up with addiction to golf. Can you be addicted to golf? I don't even know if that's a thing. but whatever. So you've got rewards, you've got costs, but okay. But how do I know I have enough? You know? So we said we're looking for the greatest profit. We're doing rewards minus cost. How do I know I've got enough? Or how do I know when to stay or when to go? Or like, how do I actually know if I'm going to enter or stay or leave? Well, you have what's called a comparison level. Your comparison level is your general idea of the kinds of rewards and profits you ought to get out of the relationship. So when you're looking at that person from across the table and you're kind of like, well, I'm interested in this person, but I'm not really quite sure, you're weighing the possible rewards against the possible cost, and you're taking that profit and you're going to compare that possible profit number to whatever your comparison level is. All right? So let's just use numbers, okay? Let's just say that you see rewards at 90, you see cost at 40, so that means you're at a profit of 50, but your comparison level is at 80. There you go, okay? That tells you you're either going to enter and be unhappy, or you're not going to get in, right? So the comparison level is the minimum standard of what is acceptable. Now, we don't use actual numbers. We don't actually quantify it. We can't. We can't actually quantify it, okay? The satisfaction depends on expectation, okay? Expectation is shaped by prior experience, especially gripping events of the recent past. So, if you just got out of a relationship, or it's been a while since you've been in one, or, you just watched your parents go through a divorce, or you've been dealing with a friend who's going through a really bad relational experience, and then all of a sudden this person you're seeing has the quality of the person who's giving your friend trouble. You're like, So we can have personal or vicarious experience. Sometimes we have a comparison level. Our minimum standard can get ridiculously high because we've been watching pop culture and we think that that's really what relationships look like. Or people who, young men and young women, especially, there's some really interesting research out there on what access to pornography young is doing to some of our young men and young women, and they're having sexual encounters when they get old enough, and it's not anything like what they've been watching since they were 9 years old, and 9 years old is actually not even nearly as young as many start. Okay, it's pretty scary. If you got kids, watch what they're doing on the internet, folks. Okay, so this minimum behavior can be so high that no one, even someone who would be a relatively good investment, can never get there, or because of life experience, you may have a comparison level that's so low that you're having someone who's just getting over that, who's not really doing anything, and it seems like it's a good deal, and it's really not. You can have better. Okay, what you want is a reasonable comparison level, so that when you do assess rewards and costs and they start to roll in the relationship, if you do choose to enter it, that you're reasonable in your comparison level. Okay, I'm almost done here, but I need to get to another screencast. I'll see you there.